Be prepared. What I'm about to tell you might explain every self-destructive choice you've made in the last year. And most people will never hear this. They'll keep repeating the same patterns, wondering why their life feels like it's working against them, never realizing there's something inside them pulling the strings. If you've been feeling like you're sabotaging your own happiness, if you keep attracting the same toxic situations over and over, if there's a voice in your head that sounds like you but wants you to fail, then you need to hear this, because what's happening to you has a name. Carl Jung called it shadow possession. And here's what most people don't understand. Your shadow isn't trying to destroy you, it's trying to be seen. But because you've been ignoring it, denying it, pushing it down for so long, it started making decisions for you. It's taken control. And until you face it, until you understand what it wants, you'll keep losing battles against yourself that you didn't even know you were fighting. I'm going to show you 3 signs that your shadow has possessed your life. Not 1, not 2, but 3 unmistakable patterns that prove you're no longer in control. And if even one of these resonates with you, everything is about to make sense in a way that's honestly terrifying. But here's the thing, recognizing these signs isn't the hard part. The hard part is what comes after. Because once you see what your shadow has been doing, once you understand how it's been running your life, you can't unsee it. You can't go back to pretending everything's fine. You'll have to make a choice. So if you're ready, if you're tired of feeling like you're at war with yourself, keep watching. Because the first sign, the one that almost everyone misses, it's the most dangerous one. And I'll reveal it in just a moment. But first you need to understand something that Jung discovered that changed everything. Your shadow isn't evil. Let me say that again because most people get this completely wrong. Your shadow isn't some demonic force trying to ruin your life. It's actually made up of parts of yourself that you were told weren't acceptable. Think about it. When you were a child, what happened when you got angry? Maybe you were told, nice girls don't get angry, or real men don't cry, or stop being so sensitive. So you learned to hide those parts. You pushed your anger down, you swallowed your tears, you dimmed your sensitivity. But here's what nobody told you. Those parts didn't disappear. They went into hiding. They formed what Jung called the shadow. And now, years later, they're still there, operating in the darkness, influencing every decision you make. Carl Jung spent decades studying this. He watched patient after patient come into his office, convinced they were going crazy, when really they were just meeting their shadow for the first time. And what he discovered was revolutionary. The people who tried to be good all the time, who never allowed themselves to feel negative emotions, who always put others first, they weren't more evolved. They were more possessed. Because the shadow doesn't go away when you ignore it. It gets stronger. It gets more desperate to be acknowledged. And eventually, it stops asking for permission. It starts taking over. Jung documented this transformation across hundreds of cases. People who seemed gentle, kind, selfless, until one day something inside them snapped. Not because they were weak, but because they had been suppressing their strength for so long that it finally erupted in ways they couldn't control. But here's where it gets interesting, and this is what most people never understand. Your shadow contains more than just your anger and your pain. It also holds your power, your creativity. All the parts of you that were too big, your too intense, too real for the world to handle. So when your shadow possesses your life, it's not just destruction, it's also your unrealized potential trying to break free. And that's why the 3 signs I'm about to show you are so important, because each one reveals not just what you've been suppressing, but what's trying to emerge. The first sign is the most unsettling, because it doesn't look like a problem at all. In fact, most people think it's a strength, and that's exactly why it's so dangerous. Sign number 1. You can't stop judging other people. Now, before you skip ahead thinking this doesn't apply to you, hear me out. Because this isn't about obvious judgment, this is about the constant running commentary in your head that you've learned to ignore. Someone cuts you off in traffic, and immediately you think, what an idiot. A co-worker gets promoted, and your first thought is, they probably slept their way to the top. You see someone living their dream life on social media, and something inside you whispers, must be fake, nobody's really that happy. You tell yourself you're just being realistic, just being honest, just seeing things clearly. But Jung would tell you something different. He'd say you're projecting. Here's what projection actually means. Every quality you harshly judge in others is a quality your shadow is trying to show you about yourself. Not because you're a bad person, but because you've been denying that part of you for so long that the only way you can see it is out there in other people. The driver who cut you off, you judge them as reckless because you've suppressed your own desire to be more spontaneous, more free, less controlled. The co-worker who got promoted, you judge them because you've buried your own ambition, your own hunger for recognition, telling yourself it's wrong to want those things. The happy person on social media, You judge them because you've silenced your own joy, convinced yourself that being serious and struggling is more authentic. Jung found this pattern everywhere. The person who constantly criticizes others for being fake is usually suppressing their own authenticity. The one who judges others as weak is usually denying their own vulnerability. The one who sees everyone else as selfish has likely buried their own needs so deep they can't even feel them anymore. And here's the terrifying part. This isn't just in your head. Your shadow makes you attract people who embody the qualities you've rejected. That's why you keep ending up in the same situations with different people. You're not unlucky. You're magnetizing your own shadow back to you through others, giving you chance after chance to recognize it. The alcoholic parent, the unfaithful partner, the manipulative friend, they're all mirrors. Not because you're destined to suffer, but because your shadow is desperately trying to show you what you've been refusing to see in yourself. Let me give you a real example. Jung had a patient who couldn't stop criticizing people for being lazy. This patient worked constantly, never took breaks, pushed through exhaustion, and secretly felt superior to anyone who didn't do the same. But Jung noticed something. Every time this patient talked about lazy people, there was an intensity there, an anger that didn't match the situation. And when Jung dug deeper, here's what he found. This patient desperately wanted to rest. Their body was screaming for it. But they had learned as a child that rest meant weakness, so they buried that need completely. But the shadow doesn't forget. Instead of letting them rest, the shadow made them obsessed with other people's laziness, made them notice it everywhere, made them rage against it, because the shadow was trying to say, look at what you won't let yourself have. Now think about the people you judge most harshly, the quality you criticize most often in others. Write it down if you need to, because that quality, that's your shadow speaking. But here's what you need to understand. Judgment isn't the real problem. Judgment is just the symptom. The real possession happens in the second sign. And this one is where people start to realize just how deep this goes. Because the second sign doesn't just affect your thoughts, it affects your entire life direction. Sign number 2, you keep creating the same disasters in different disguises. You've noticed this, haven't you? The relationship that starts amazing and ends the exact same way as the last one. The job that seems perfect until it becomes toxic, just like the previous 3. The friendship that feels different until suddenly you're having the same betrayal, the same disappointment, the same ending. And every time it happens, you tell yourself, this time will be different. I've learned my lesson. I know what to watch out for now. But it's never different. The faces change, the details shift, but the core pattern, that stays exactly the same. Most people blame this on bad luck, or they blame other people. I just keep attracting the wrong types. But Jung would ask you a different question. What if you're not attracting anything? What if you're creating it? This is shadow possession at its most powerful. Because when your shadow runs the show, it doesn't just make you see things differently. It makes you recreate the same scenarios over and over, trying to resolve something that happened long ago. Jung called this repetition compulsion. But it's more than just a compulsion. It's your shadow's way of trying to heal an old wound by putting you back in the same situation, hoping this time you'll respond differently. Let me break this down because it's crucial. Your shadow formed when you were young. Maybe someone betrayed you. Maybe you were abandoned. Maybe you learned that love comes with conditions. And in that moment, a part of you got frozen. A part of you couldn't process what happened because you were too young, too overwhelmed, too alone. So that part went into the shadow. And now, years later, your shadow keeps recreating that original wound, not to torture you, but to give you another chance to heal it, to respond differently, to choose yourself this time. But here's the problem, you don't know you're doing this. Your conscious mind thinks it's choosing freely. I really like this person, this job is perfect for me, this opportunity feels right. But your shadow is running a program underneath all of that. And the program always leads you back to the same ending. The person who chooses partners who are emotionally unavailable, their shadow is recreating the dynamic with a parent who was never really there. The person who self-sabotages every success, their shadow learned that being visible meant being hurt. The person who can't stop attracting narcissists, their shadow is still trying to get validation from someone who will never give it, just like in childhood. Jung documented this across his patients. He found that empaths, sensitive people, those who felt everything deeply, they were the most vulnerable to this pattern. Because they had absorbed so much pain, so much dysfunction from their environment, that their shadow became a storage unit of everyone else's trauma. These people didn't just carry their own wounds, they carried their parents' wounds, their siblings' wounds, the collective pain of their entire family system, and their shadow kept trying to resolve all of it by putting them in a situation where they could finally heal it. But you can't heal someone else's wound. You can only heal your own. And until you realize that, Until you see the pattern for what it is, your shadow will keep driving you back to the same disaster, hoping this time you'll get it right. Here's how you know if this is happening to you. Look at the last 3 major relationships or situations in your life that ended badly. Not surface-level details, but the core feeling, the core dynamic. Did they all make you feel the same way? Unworthy, abandoned, used, invisible? That feeling, that's your shadow's signature. That's the original wound it's trying to heal. And every disaster you create is just another attempt to resolve what happened back then. The strangest part, your shadow thinks it's helping you. It thinks that by putting you back in that familiar pain, it's giving you a chance to rewrite the story, to choose differently, to finally stand up for yourself, set boundaries, walk away, say no. But most people don't choose differently. They just live through the same pain again, wondering why life keeps doing this to them. And that brings us to the third sign, the one that Jung said was the most dangerous. Because while the first 2 signs show you what your shadow is doing, the third sign reveals something even more disturbing. It shows you that your shadow isn't just influencing your choices, it's become your identity. And once that happens, once you start believing you are your shadow, breaking free becomes almost impossible, almost. But I'll show you how in just a moment. Sign number 3, you've convinced yourself that your pain makes you special. This is the one that people don't want to hear. This is the one that feels like an attack when it's actually the deepest truth you need to face. Because somewhere along the way your shadow did something incredibly clever. It made your suffering part of your identity. You've probably noticed this in subtle ways. The stories you tell about yourself always center around struggle. The way you introduce yourself to new people includes your trauma, your challenges, your wounds. You've become the person who overcame abuse, the one who survived betrayal, the empath who feels everything. And on the surface this seems healthy. You're owning your story, right? You're not hiding your pain. But Jung would ask you something uncomfortable. Are you owning your story, or is your story owning you? Here's what shadow possession looks like at its final stage. You stop seeing yourself as a person who experienced pain. You start seeing yourself as a person made of pain. Your entire identity becomes wrapped up in your suffering, your sensitivity, your damage. And the shadow loves this, because now it doesn't have to fight for control. You've handed it the keys willingly. You've said, "This is who I am, this is my truth." And the shadow whispers back, "Yes, and you can never change." Jung saw this transformation countless times. Patients who came to him for healing but didn't actually want to heal, because healing meant losing the one thing that made them feel special, unique, understood. Their pain had become their personality. The empath who can't stop absorbing everyone else's emotions. They've convinced themselves that's just who they are, that it's their gift, their burden, their identity. But Jung would say that's the shadow speaking. The real you doesn't have to suffer to be valuable. The person who keeps talking about their trauma, reliving it, using it as an explanation for everything. They're not processing it, they're feeding it, they're keeping it alive because somewhere deep down they believe that without it, they wouldn't be interesting, they wouldn't be worthy of attention. And here's the most insidious part, your shadow starts sabotaging any real healing, because healing would mean killing your identity. If you actually processed your pain, if you actually integrated your shadow, if you actually became whole, who would you be then? That question terrifies people more than you'd think, because they've spent so long being the wounded one, the sensitive one, the survivor, that they don't know who they are without those labels. Jung found this especially common in empaths. People who had spent their entire lives absorbing other people's pain had convinced themselves that was their purpose, that they were meant to suffer, that their sensitivity was a cross to bear. But that's not sensitivity, that's shadow possession. Real sensitivity doesn't destroy you, it enhances you. Real empathy doesn't leave you drained and broken, it fills you with understanding and connection. When your shadow possesses your identity, it tricks you into thinking that your pain is your power, that your wounds are your worth, that without your suffering, you'd be nothing. And the tragic part, you start to prove yourself right. You unconsciously block opportunities for joy because joy doesn't fit your narrative. You push away healthy relationships because healthy doesn't feel familiar. You sabotage success because success would mean you're no longer the underdog, the victim, the one who overcomes. Here's the hard truth. If you removed all your pain, all your trauma, all your stories of suffering, and someone asked you, "Who are you?" could you answer? Or would you feel empty? Would you feel like nothing is left? That's how you know your shadow has possessed your identity. When your pain feels more real than your potential. When your past feels more defining than your future. When your wounds feel more valuable than your wholeness. Jung wrote about this transformation. He said the greatest tragedy isn't that people suffer, it's that they fall in love with their suffering. They make it sacred, they protect it, they feed it, and in doing so, They ensure it never ends. But here's what Jung discovered that changes everything. This possession, no matter how complete it feels, it's reversible. The shadow can be integrated. The pattern can be broken. Your identity can be reclaimed, not through fighting it, not through denying it, but through something Jung called shadow integration. And in the next few minutes, I'm going to show you exactly how to start that process tonight. Shadow integration isn't comfortable, it's not easy, but it's the only way out of possession. And it starts with 3 steps that Jung refined over his entire career. Step 1. Stop running from your shadow. That judgment you feel toward others, own it as a mirror. Those disasters you keep creating, recognize them as messages. That identity built on pain, question whether it's really you or just a story your shadow has been telling. Step 2. Have a conversation with your shadow. Jung literally did this. He spoke to his shadow like it was a separate person. And here's what he found. The shadow isn't your enemy. It's a part of you that's been exiled. It's been trying to get your attention. The only way it knows how. Through chaos, through pain, through possession. Ask it, what do you want? What are you trying to show me? What part of me have I been denying? And then, this is crucial, listen, without judgment. Your shadow holds your unlived life, your suppressed power, your denied truths. Step 3. Reclaim what the shadow has been protecting. Your anger, that's your boundary-setting ability. Your selfishness, that's your self-preservation instinct. Your darkness, that's your depth, your complexity, your full humanity. Jung found that when people integrated their shadow, they didn't become worse, they became whole. The empath who embraced their shadow stopped being destroyed by others' emotions and started using their sensitivity as strategic intelligence. The people pleaser who faced their shadow discovered they had a backbone made of steel. Tonight, before you go to sleep, I want you to do something. Sit in the dark for just 5 minutes. No phone, no distractions. And ask yourself these 3 questions. Who have I been judging lately, and what does that say about what I've rejected in myself? What pattern keeps showing up in my life, and what wound is it trying to heal? If I stripped away all my pain, all my stories, who would I be? Don't rush the answers, let them come, because your shadow has been waiting your entire life to finally be heard. Jung spent decades proving that the shadow isn't your enemy, it's your ticket to wholeness, but only if you stop running, only if you turn around and face what you've been avoiding. The 3 signs I've shown you, they're not punishments, they're invitations. Invitations to reclaim the parts of yourself you left behind, to stop being possessed and start being whole. If you're still watching, if you've made it this far, that means something in you is ready. Ready to stop repeating, ready to stop suffering, ready to integrate your shadow and finally become who you were always meant to be. Your shadow isn't trying to destroy you, it's trying to complete you. The question is, are you ready to let it? If you enjoyed this deep dive into Carl Jung's shadow work, subscribe for more psychology that actually transforms your life. Drop a comment telling me which sign hit you hardest. And remember, the shadow you're running from is the power you're denying. It's time to turn around and face it. Until next time, integrate your shadow and become whole.